Top 10 Most Notorious Dictators in History. Throughout history, some leaders have ruled with an iron fist, leaving behind a legacy of fear, war and destruction. These dictators held absolute power, silenced opposition and reshaped nations, often at a terrible cost. Today we count down the top 10 most notorious dictators in history. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Top Tier World for more intriguing rankings on history, politics and culture. 10. Muammar Gaddafi, Libya 1969–2011. Muammar Gaddafi ruled Libya for 42 years, coming to power through a military coup in 1969. He branded his rule as Islamic socialism, but in reality it was a brutal dictatorship. Gaddafi crushed dissent with his intelligence agencies, imprisoning and executing opponents. He also financed terrorist organizations and was accused of human rights abuses, including torturing political prisoners. Despite his iron rule, economic reforms initially improved Libya's economy due to its vast oil reserves. However, his extravagant lifestyle and oppressive governance led to resentment. In 2011, during the Arab Spring, protests erupted, leading to a NATO-backed rebellion. Eventually Gaddafi was captured and killed by rebels, marking the end of his regime. 9. Francisco Franco, Spain 1939–1975. Francisco Franco ruled Spain for almost 36 years after winning the Spanish Civil War. His rule was characterized by extreme censorship, oppression of political opponents, and a highly militarized society. Franco aligned himself with Hitler and Mussolini during World War II, though he kept Spain neutral in the war. Under his dictatorship, opposition figures were executed, imprisoned, or forced into exile. His policies also suppressed regional identities, banning languages like Catalan and Basque. Despite his brutal methods, Spain experienced economic growth in the 1960s, but political repression remained strong. He died in 1975 and Spain slowly transitioned into democracy, but his legacy remains controversial. 8. Idi Amin, Uganda 1971–1979. Idi Amin, a former military officer, seized power in a 1971 coup and ruled Uganda with extreme brutality. Known for his erratic and violent behavior, he called himself the King of Scotland, and claimed bizarre supernatural powers. His regime was responsible for the massacres of nearly 300,000 people, targeting ethnic groups, intellectuals and dissidents. Amin also expelled all Asians from Uganda, leading to economic collapse. He engaged in reckless military conflicts, including a failed invasion of Tanzania in 1978, which led to his downfall. In 1979, Tanzanian forces and Ugandan exiles overthrew him. Amin fled to Saudi Arabia, where he lived in luxury until his death in 2003, never facing justice for his crimes. 7. Saddam Hussein, Iraq 1979–2003. Saddam Hussein ruled Iraq with an iron grip for 24 years. Rising through the Ba'ath Party, he became president in 1979 and immediately purged rivals. His rule was marked by severe human rights violations, the use of chemical weapons against civilians, and wars against Iran 1980–1988 and Kuwait 1990. His brutal crackdown on the Kurds and Shia Muslims led to thousands of deaths. He also developed a cult of personality, with his image plastered across Iraq. In 2003, after the US-led invasion, he was captured, tried and executed in 2006 for crimes against humanity. 6. Kim Il-sung, North Korea 1948–1994. Kim Il-sung, the founding dictator of North Korea, created the world's most isolated and repressive regime. His rule established the Juche ideology, a self-reliant form of communism that led to extreme poverty and dependence on propaganda. He built an absolute cult of personality, making himself worshipped like a god. His policies led to famine, economic decline and mass executions. North Korea became a totalitarian police state where disobedience meant imprisonment or execution. After his death in 1994, his family continued his legacy, and North Korea remains an authoritarian state with little freedom for its people. 5. Pol Pot, Cambodia 1975–1979. Pol Pot led the Khmer Rouge and ruled Cambodia for only 4 years, yet his brutality was one of the worst in history. He sought to create a pure agrarian society, forcing millions into labor camps. Nearly 2 million people, about a quarter of Cambodia's population, died from execution, starvation or disease. Schools, hospitals and cities were abandoned, and anyone educated was considered an enemy. The infamous killing fields became mass graves for those accused of being traitors. In 1979, Vietnam invaded Cambodia, ending Pol Pot's rule. He lived in hiding until 1998, when he died without facing justice. 4. Benito Mussolini, Italy 1922–1943. Benito Mussolini, the founder of fascism, ruled Italy for 21 years. He turned Italy into a militarized state using secret police to suppress opposition. His alliance with Hitler dragged Italy into World War II, leading to disastrous consequences. His colonial ambitions led to brutal invasions in Africa, particularly in Ethiopia, where his forces used chemical weapons. In 1943 he was removed from power, captured in 1945 and executed by anti-fascist forces. His death marked the fall of fascism in Italy. 3. Mao Zedong, China 1949–1976. Mao Zedong founded Communist China and ruled for 27 years, but his policies led to tens of millions of deaths. His Great Leap Forward 1958–1962 aimed to industrialize China but caused the worst famine in history, killing around 30 million people. His Cultural Revolution 1966–1976 purged intellectuals and political opponents, leading to widespread violence and chaos. Despite these failures, Mao is still glorified in China today. 2. Joseph Stalin, Soviet Union 1924–1953. Stalin transformed the Soviet Union into a superpower, but at the cost of millions of lives. His reign saw mass purges, forced labor camps, gulags, and state-sponsored terror. The Holodomor, a man-made famine in Ukraine, killed millions. His paranoia led to the execution of even his closest allies. Despite his tyranny, he is credited with leading the USSR to victory in World War II. He died in 1953, leaving behind a nation built on fear. 1. Adolf Hitler, Germany 1933–1945. Adolf Hitler, leader of Nazi Germany, is the most infamous dictator in history. His aggressive policies led to World War II and the Holocaust, in which 6 million Jews and millions of others were murdered. His expansionist ambitions devastated Europe, and his racist ideology led to genocide and war crimes. In 1945, when Germany faced defeat, Hitler committed suicide in his bunker. His ideology remains a dark stain on history. If you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe, and let us know in the comments who you think was the most dangerous dictator. For more historical videos, stay connected with Top Tier World.